Hello everybody. The other day I learned how to create libraries in the PlatformIO development environment and publish those libraries ultimately to the PlatformIO registry. If you're interested in creating libraries for the Arduino IDE, there is an excellent tutorial available on YouTube by Robotics Backend. Link will be in the description. However, this particular video only goes as far as publishing those libraries to GitHub and never shows how to actually publish the libraries to the Arduino repository. So if you're interested in this particular topic, please leave me a comment and maybe I can make a video. But as for this video, I will talk about how to create local libraries in a project, then how those libraries can be exported into a local folder somewhere on your own computer, which you then can import in all your projects. We can take those one step further and publish those libraries onto GitHub, and ultimately we can publish them onto the PlatformIO registry, and then they become available just like any other library you're probably familiar with importing into your PlatformIO projects. Just one disclaimer, in the interest of time, I will assume that you are reasonably familiar with how to create libraries in C or C++. And with that, let's get started. So here I have a very simple program which has a function prototype, say hello world. It has the sketch which calls the function, and I have the actual definition of the function. And obviously this function is very simple. It will just print hello to the serial monitor every second, because we don't want to focus on some complicated code, but how to create libraries. So this is the code I want to take apart and put the functionality into a library. And the simplest way in PlatformIO to create a library is to actually create a local library. So if you go into this lib folder here and open up the README file, it shows you how to do it. So there are two suggestions, one very simple one for maybe smaller libraries and one more structured example for more involved libraries. And this is the example I want to follow today. So let's recreate this folder structure here in our lib folder. So we first should come up with a name for our library and name the parent folder accordingly. So let me create a new folder, and let's say our library is called say hello. And then inside of this folder, we create the structure here. So we create another folder, docs. We create another folder, examples. We create another folder for our source files, src, and later on we also will create this library.json file, which is optional for local libraries, but becomes a necessity later on if we want to publish our library to the GitHub registry. And then inside of our source folder, we need to create a source file and a header file, which again should carry the name of our library. So let's do that. We have a say hello.h file, and we have a say hello.c++ file. Okay, and then in our header file, we first should put header guards in here. So if not defined, say hello underscore h, then we want to define it. Say hello underscore h. And we want to end our if statement here, and if. All right. And then, of course, here we just need to put our function prototype. So we go back to our main file and we take the function prototype from here. We can just copy it. We can copy it right here. We also should include the Arduino library here if you want to use Arduino functionality in your source file later on. And here in our source file, we need to now include our new header file. So include, and since this is a local file, we use quotations. Say hello.h, and then we can go back into our program and we can grab our function definition and we copy this into our source file right here. So that's essentially all we have to do. Now we can go back here and we can delete our function prototype, and we can delete our function definition. And then, of course, now it doesn't know our say hello function here anymore. So we have to go in here and include this header file, include say hello.h. And then hopefully, if all goes well, our say hello will be known here. We still have this red squiggly line, and those go away once you restart PlatformIO. But the important part is, if we click on compile here, you will hopefully find that your program can compile without error. And there we go. So that is really all you have to do to create a local library. And then if you want to take this library and want to put it into a folder outside of your project, so you can share it across projects, all you have to do, you have to take this folder here we just created and move it outside of your project and then link back to this folder. So let's do just that. All right, so I've restarted PlatformIO and you can see that the red squiggly line is gone. And now if I want to move my say hello library to the outside world, so I can link it to different projects, I simply go into my project, I find my say hello folder in my library folder, and I copy it to the outside world. So let's place it here, somewhere convenient. And then if I go back to my project, you will see it can no longer find the library here because my library folder is empty. So to get it back in, all I have to do is go into my PlatformIO ini file here and type library dependencies equal, and then I need to copy the path to my folder and place it right here. But before I do so, let me just move out of the way, because as soon as I place this path right here, you will see PlatformIO go into action here, including this library. And then if I go into my library dependencies here in my PIO folder, you will see that now I have my say hello folder right here in the same place where all other imported libraries would show up if I get them from the PlatformIO registry. All right, so that's great. Let me go back into the lower right corner. And also, since this now is an external file, I really should update my include statement here in my main file. And instead of using quotes, I should use angle brackets, like so. All right, so let me just add my library folder to the workspace. And this really isn't necessary because, as you could see, it works perfectly fine without it. But this way I can see everything in the same place. And that definitely would be convenient if I want to develop my library here. So let me go into my source file here. And what you will see here is that actually I'm getting all kinds of errors in my source file here. It's not a problem because it actually works, but it just cannot find the Arduino library in this place here. So to fix that, I can actually simply grab my VS Code folder here. And by control dragging it, I can copy it into the say hello folder. And all it does is it includes the path to the Arduino library into my say hello library and gets rid of all the red squiggly lines here. Okay. And then now, since this is an external library, I really should do a little bit of a better job documenting my library so it becomes useful to people who actually use the library. So the first thing I like to do is put a changelog file here. So let me actually just grab this from somewhere else. Here we go. Just copy this in here. And you see that it's a very simple changelog markdown file. So if you actually want to see it formatted, we can click up here and you see the file. And PlatformIO uses semantic versioning. And then you should definitely follow that because that becomes important later on when you want users to be able to refer to specific versions of your library. So right now we were starting with version 1.0.0, put a date here and a little bit of a comment as to what this library actually provides. And in this case, this will be my first commit to GitHub later on. And semantic versioning, in case you're not familiar with it, essentially indicates major, minor, and patches. So you should use patches whenever you fix a bug or maybe add some comments. You should use minor version numbers if you add something or do some other improvements to it. But all changes you do in minor versions, they should be backwards compatible, meaning they should not break any code. But if you do changes to your library which actually are breaking changes, then you should increment the major version number here. So following this convention here is very important. All right, so here is our changelog. I also should provide an example in here. So go into the example folder. And again, I have pre-made an example. So let me just grab this from here, place this in here. And obviously, an example should just demonstrate how the library is used in a as simple as possible way. So try to stay away from being fancy here and just focus on the most simple case how people could use your library. And then we also should provide a library JSON file. And this library JSON file needs to live in the root folder of our library. So again, let me bring this in from the outside world because I have done this already. So right, here we go. And here is the library.json file. And you can actually go to the documentation, which is provided by PlatformIO right here, where it actually tells you how libraries are supposed to be structured. It gives you a structure here. We didn't follow this exactly, but it gives you an example here of how you could structure it. We have structured it a little bit differently. You're actually pretty free to do what you want, but you need to include a manifest file, which the preferred version is the JSON file. So here is an example of the JSON file. It is pretty self-explanatory. You have a name of your library. You have the version number. You can give the user some description of the library. You can put in where your library lives on GitHub. I have to change this later on because that was not the right name just yet. And then the license information, the framework, and the platforms. If you put an asterisk here, that means that this particular library is meant to work with all platforms, meaning it works with the different Arduino boards. It works with an ESP32 and so on. So yeah, this is definitely something you want to read the documentations for to understand the meaning of all those different fields here. And with that, our library is mainly complete. Maybe one more thing which can be pointed out here is that if I go into our PlatformIO ini file here one more time, and right now we just put the raw file string in here. There are actually some options I can put in front of here to control how files are implemented. And again, they can be found here in our PlatformIO documentation on the local folder. And we have this file option here, which does essentially what is done if we don't specify the file. And we also have the symbolic link option here, which then forces PlatformIO to refer to the original folder of the library and not copy a copy of our library into the library dependencies. So let's maybe just do that. Let's copy this part here, and I should get out of the way again. Let's put this in front of here. And again, you will see that PlatformIO does some thinking here. And then if you go back into our library dependencies, you will see that now this has been replaced by a link to the say hello file. So now any change I make in the library folder will be automatically translated into this particular project here. And I don't have to constantly update the library between my source file and my project file. And then, of course, if I make this here file again, then you will see this will change back to a copy of the say hello library. All right, then. And with that, we are almost ready to push our library to GitHub. And then we can include our library from GitHub and don't no longer need to rely on local copies of our library. All right. So in what follows, I assume that you have configured GitHub to work with your Visual Studio Code, and also that you are reasonably familiar with Git and GitHub. And so what we have to do now is to bring the gitignore file here from our library demo. We can copy this into our say hello folder, and then let me collapse the library demo because we don't really need it anymore, and just open this gitignore here. We can delete quite a few entries from here because we really only need to ignore the entire .vs Code folder. And then it couldn't be simpler. We simply go to our version control here and we say publish to GitHub. And then we want to publish our say hello, and we want to publish it to a public repository because we later on want to actually share it with the PlatformIO registry. And then again, I probably should get out of the way because down here it then says open in GitHub, and we can open it in GitHub. And here is our brand new library, say hello, now published in my GitHub account. All right, fantastic. And from here, I can then simply clone the account and go back into here. And now I need to expand my library demo again, go into my ini file. And now I can replace my local location with the GitHub location. And again, PlatformIO Library Manager will go to work here and hopefully provide us with a success message here in not too long. And then if I go into my PIO library dependencies, say hello. Again, I have my say hello library here, and now it includes the gitignore because now it links to my GitHub repository. And hopefully my program will still work as intended. And actually, I should probably update my JSON file as well is the correct link I just copied. And then I can update JSON, synchronize this updated JSON file. And I go back to my GitHub repository, just check whether my JSON file is indeed up to date. And that seems to be okay. And then I can copy from my changelog here. And this is my version 1.0.0 create tag publish release. All right, so this is my first version. And if I want to update this version here, let's say I make some changes, I will simply create a version 0.1 here with some changes. I also want to update my JSON file. And then I want to push all of that again to GitHub. So let's go over here in our repository. Our library JSON file now has our update here. Same hopefully for our changelog file, our version 1.0.1. Then I can create a new release node, tag version 1.0.1, some changes, and we can set this to our latest release and publish it. And now if I go back to my ini file here in my demo, collapse this one here, I can now actually specify the version number here, right? I can now say hashtag version 1.0.1. And again, PlatformIO will go to work here for a little while. And eventually I will get a successful update here. And if I then go back into, let's say, my library dependencies, and I open my library.json file, you see now this here is version 1.0.1. And if for whatever reason I don't like this particular version, I can go into my ini file and I can change this to 0.0. And again, PlatformIO will go to work here, go through some updates and eventually say success. And then again, open my JSON file and I'm back to my previous version. So if you keep your Git repository nicely organized, you can benefit from this organization when you import your various libraries. And obviously, once you publish your libraries to the PlatformIO registry, other users will be able to benefit from this organization as well. So that's all you have to do to publish your library to GitHub. And then now, obviously, you can share it with whoever you would like to share it with. And particularly if you are maybe working in a company, you can keep those repositories private. But the next step now is to publish our new library to the PlatformIO registry. So any user who is familiar with importing libraries into PlatformIO by using the library manager will be able to find your library. So that's what I will show next. All right, but before you publish your own library, it is probably a good idea to read through the documentation. And there's lots of good information here. Again, how to structure a library, how to include the manifest JSON file. And also at the very end here, there is examples. So if you click onto here, go browse, there are a bunch of libraries. Some of them you may already be familiar with. And so we want to add our example library here to this illustrious list. So it's a good idea to check out how those libraries commonly look like. And so they have a README file, they have installation instructions, they have examples, and they have all the various versions here. So we also want to include a README file into our own library, which is displayed on the registry. And so I have prepared one, which I can just drag into our, say, hello folder here. You can take a look at it again. So it just explains that this is just an example, so people shouldn't get their hopes up too high if they install this library here. And later on, I will include the YouTube link here into this file as well once I uploaded this tutorial. All right, so let me just clean up my screen here a little bit, essentially get rid of everything. And the way to upload libraries onto the PlatformIO registry, there's actually a tool which is accessible through the terminal. So if you type PlatformIO here, you hopefully will get those options here. If you get an error message here, then you have not included the right path into your system variables here. So you need to make sure that you have a path to the PlatformIO scripts folder here. And inside of the scripts folder, there's this PIO executable. And then so we have to use that. And what I'm assuming here is that you already have created an account with PlatformIO and that you logged in. If not, if you actually go to PIO account right here, right? And if you have not created one, you can create an account and then you can log into your account right here from the console. I have done that already. So all I have to do, I have to actually go to the package manager here. So PIO PKG. And again, then here it gives us a couple of options. You can publish libraries, which is what we will do here in a minute. You also can unpublish libraries once you, if you discover that there's some problem with your library or you just have been playing around a little bit, which is what I have been doing for a little while before making this video here. The only thing you have to be mindful of here is that you only can unpublish libraries for 72 hours. If you're past 72 hours, then you have to reach out to PlatformIO to have them remove your libraries. Try to avoid bothering them with removing libraries. So anyhow, I will use this publish option here. So I will go to package publish, enter, and then it gives me some information here. So I'm publishing a library. I'm the owner. The library is called Say Hello, the version 0.01. All this looks good. And then it asks me to confirm here yes or no. And in this case, I say yes. And the library is being published. And then it tells me here that I will receive an email once my library has been published. And this typically takes only a couple of minutes. And then you should be able to see your library. So I will be back once the library has been made available. All right. So that was reasonably quick. If you go to the PlatformIO registry and we search for our username, you can see there are now two libraries. One I've been publishing previously, and this is the one we just worked on together. If I click on here, you can see that here is one single version published. If you click on release notes here, you can also see the release note we just had provided in GitHub. And then we can go into our library demo here. We can go again back to the ini file. We can comment this one out here for the moment, and we go home. And now I'm going to search for this library. And then again, here we have all those libraries. And in this case, I want to add the Say Hello library to the project we have been just working on. Add. And probably I should try to get out of the way here again fast enough. You can see the PlatformIO does its thing. And now we can go into our library dependencies. And I guess this one here is the old one. Let me remove this one here. Clear remove both of them. Let's see what happens. Ini file. So here, this is our new version, right? So it has found it again here. So we are up to date with our library. What I also can do, I can commit my README file here and create a new version tag on GitHub. So let me first commit. Yes, upload those changes. And now if I go back into my Say Hello and publish the library again, oops, I need to go to a terminal, publish the library again, then you will see he's complaining here because we have not incremented our version number. So we need to do that as well. To go in our JSON file, make this a 2. We also should go in our change log and provide some useful information here. So this is a 2, and we added our README file, and then we should again upload those changes. README synchronize, and now if I publish now with the incremented version number, hopefully this will allow me to do so. So yes. And again, this will be a little while, but once this library has been added, we can then go to our library manager here, and that should automatically update here in a little while and show us the version 0.02. And here we go. So here we have the version 0.02, and there is one problem with it, and that is if you click on here, you will see that it has not been found on the GitHub website. And the reason this is not found on the GitHub website is because we have not created a version tag for 1.02 on GitHub. So let's go to our GitHub site here, release, and we create a new release tag, version 1.0.2, readme md edit, markdown edit, and we want to set this as our latest version, and we say publish. And again, I always make the same mistake, version 0.0.2 add tag, publish. All right, and with that, hopefully now if you click on here, we find this version number under the link of the release note. All right, and now the last thing we could talk about is that we now can go into our PlatformIO ini file here. We see this roof symbol here, which means the highest version of the library, which has a major version number of 1, will be used in this particular project. So if you go in our lib dependencies, you can see here, hello world, JSON, that this is the 0.02. If you want to revert back to a previous version, you then again can go into here and you can remove this symbol here, and now it is precisely this version which will be installed into our project. So again, we're waiting a little bit here, and once the project has completed updating, we can go into our library dependencies, hello world, and you see we are back to our previous 1.1 version. But obviously, most of the time, you want to use the newest version, which does not contain breaking changes. So leave this roof symbol in here. All right, so that's pretty much it. If you find this tutorial useful, give it a like and maybe even subscribe. And definitely, if you use this tutorial to publish your own library, leave a comment and tell us what library you have published. All right, goodbye, everybody.